Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely epic narrative of identity, failure, and redemption. We're tracing the life of a prince who, well, became an exile. We're looking at the story of Moses. But look, we're not just treating this as ancient history. We're exploring a deeply human story about brokenness, waiting, and discovering your purpose right when you think your life is already over. Let's jump right into this incredibly dramatic opening scene. What would actually make a mother push her own child into a river to save him? We start with a Hebrew woman named Jochebed. She's desperate to save her 3-month-old son from Pharaoh's soldiers, so she painstakingly weaves a basket, places him inside, and literally has to pry her own fingers open to let the river just take him away. It's the staggering moment of letting go of absolutely everything she loves, just to give him a fighting chance at life. Which brings us to Section 1, A Prince Becomes an Exile. Let's see how this incredible transformation kicks off. So as the basket floats away, the baby is plucked from the reeds by none other than Pharaoh's daughter. She names him Moses, which literally translates to drawn from the water. Now, he grows up as a prince of Egypt right alongside his brother Ramses. They're racing chariots, entirely believing the world belongs to them. But what's incredibly poignant here is that Moses is completely unaware that his own Hebrew mother is secretly employed to nurse him in the palace. She's there, quietly singing him lullabies of his true heritage in the dead of night. You really have to notice the sheer scale of this waiting period. We're talking about decades of his life categorized by massive shifts in identity. Think about it, from royalty at birth, to fleeing out into the desert at age 40, to his defining encounter at the burning bush way later at age 80. It's a life defined by tectonic shifts. He goes from royalty to being a literal nobody out in the wilderness. The first major turning point hits right at that 40-year mark. Moses wanders outside the palace one day and witnesses an Egyptian guard brutally beating an exhausted Hebrew slave. And something inside Moses just snaps. His soft, royal hands that honestly had never worked a day in their lives, take a life. And suddenly, he's left staring at his golden rings, now red, wet, and warm with blood. This leads to a profound rejection. The very next day, he's confronted by a fellow Hebrew with these devastating words. You wear their gold, you eat their food, you're not one of us, you never were. The prince's identity completely shatters in that moment. Those words land like stones in his chest. With blood on his hands and literally nowhere else to turn, he is forced to flee into the harsh desert of Midian. And he spends the next 40 years there as a simple, forgotten shepherd. That takes us right into Section 2, the burning bush. So after 4 decades of absolute silence, tending sheep in the wilderness, and pretty much believing his life is over, an 80-year-old Moses experiences a moment that changes the course of history. He's chasing a stray lamb up a mountain, and he sees a light. It's a bush burning on the rocks above, but the fire is dancing without actually consuming the leaves or the branches. He approaches this impossible, living sight, feeling the ground just humming beneath his sandals. And from the fire, he hears a voice commanding him to return to Egypt to free his suffering people. Now, as you might expect, Moses tries to refuse. He brings up his blood-stained hands, his stuttering tongue, his 40 years of running and hiding. He practically begs the voice to send someone else. But the voice responds with this profound reassurance. I knew you in the basket, Moses. You have never been lost. You have always been mine. It's this gentle, fatherly statement that just cracks open the 40 years of deep shame he'd been carrying. It proved his past didn't disqualify him. Empowered by this, he heads back, bringing us to Section 3. Let my people go. When he arrives at the palace, this really tragic battle of wills unfolds. Consider the striking dichotomy between these two men who once raced chariots together as brothers. On one side, we have Moses, reluctant, broken, returning with nothing but a cracked wooden staff and a divine mandate, seeking liberation. And on the other side, Ramses, proud, his face hardened into stone, crowned with a golden serpent, and absolutely refusing to yield his power, or his empire, to a man he feels abandon him. As Ramesses' pride just refuses to bend, Egypt completely unravels. We see a series of escalating plagues, water turning to blood, swarms of frogs and flies, dead livestock, suffocating darkness. It builds this incredible dread and tension, right up until the final plague, that devastating night when the wail of grieving mothers rises over the entire land as the firstborn perish. The aftermath is heartbreaking. Sitting on the steps of his empty throne room, holding his lifeless son, a completely hollowed-out Ramses finally breaks. He doesn't even look up at Moses. Emptied of everything except grief, out of this raw animal pain, he whispers these exact words: "Take your people, take your God, leave my land." This reluctant release leads us directly into Section 4, parting the Red Sea. 600,000. That is the staggering number of Hebrews who walked out of Egypt, carrying 400 years of broken chains on their backs. But here's the thing. Their newfound freedom doesn't exactly feel safe. It feels more like walking off a cliff in the dark. Almost immediately, they find themselves trapped. They're caught between an impassable, endless gray sea and Ramses, who, predictably, has changed his mind and is now charging at them with hundreds of merciless, armored chariots. Facing certain death and the absolute panic of the people, Moses grips that cracked wooden staff. He is utterly paralyzed by his own feelings of inadequacy, closing his eyes and thinking, "I am not enough. I was never enough." Think about that. After 80 years, he still feels the crushing weight of his own limitations. But God's whispered response releases Moses from the burden of needing to be the savior. The voice says, "You were never supposed to be. Just lift the staff." Moses didn't need to be enough. He just needed to be obedient. So he lifts the staff, the wind roars in, tearing the water apart into towering walls, and those 600,000 people cross over into freedom on a seafloor that's as dry as bone. Having traced this truly epic journey, let's move to Section 5, 4 lessons from the story. Because this isn't just history, right? It's a mirror for our own lives. The crucial point is that this sweeping history anchors itself in 4 deeply personal reflections. Number 1, your past does not disqualify you. Number 2, weakness is not a wall, it is a door. Number 3, trust God with what you cannot control, just like Jochebed bravely opening her hands to the river. And number 4, pride protects nothing and eventually breaks you, exactly as we saw with Ramses losing everything he tried so fiercely to hold on to. Let's actually focus on this second point for a moment. Your weakness is not a wall, it's a door. Just think about Moses. He stuttered, he failed, he committed a terrible crime, and he spent 40 years hiding as a literal nobody in the desert. Yet, his story beautifully illustrates that our worst failures are so often the beginning of something much greater. The place where you feel the weakest, that's exactly where true strength walks in. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to really reflect on. What door is your weakness trying to open? Think about the areas in your own life where you feel broken, delayed, or simply not enough. Maybe, just like an 80-year-old shepherd in the desert, your moment hasn't passed at all. Thanks so much for joining me for this journey today. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.